All right, what's going on, people? Welcome to VEVE Investments. I appreciate you tuning in. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing Banksy on VEVE and whether this is going to be a positive or negative thing for VEVE's brand image. There's been a lot of talk in the community, a lot of opinions raised, and Ron English himself has actually made a comment. So today's video is to summarize all of that. If you guys enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in a future episode. And without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. So first up, we're just going to do a couple general updates here for you guys. So the first one is going to be about Showroom Showdown. Now, if you guys didn't notice, our second one should have been last week. Now, I did take some time to kind of think about this, lay all my thoughts out to make sure I was making the right decision. And before you guys start thinking that I am canceling it, I am not. But what I do want to do is postpone it. And there's a couple reasons why. Now, I'm pretty critical of myself, and there are a couple mistakes that I did make that I noticed. The first one is that I promoted Showroom Showdown far too early. It was about a month in advance. And 2 days after I announced it, VEVE Rumble was announced, so it kind of took eyes off of it. The second reason is I promoted it far too soon on the channel. So we have a very small following. We're growing fast, very consistently, and thank you to everybody who supported the channel thus far. But I think right now it would be better for us to wait a little bit, for us to have a little bit more eyes on the competition, and therefore people submitting as well. Now, the purpose of me running this is obviously for the community, so if you guys think otherwise and have a difference of opinion, please let me know in the comments down below. That's what matters most to me, is obviously if I'm making the right decision here or not. In my opinion, if we postpone it, wait for our following on the channel to grow a little bit more so we have more eyes and therefore more people submitting to the competition, it'll be a little bit more entertaining for viewers. A longer video and more submissions. I completely apologize, guys. Obviously, I want something like this to be enjoyable for the community, and I felt like it was very anticlimactic. I felt I promoted it too soon, and even though we had 7 or 8 submissions, thank you to everybody who submitted, by the way. It wouldn't have been possible without you guys. And those are the reasons why I feel like it's best to postpone the competition for now. And last little update here is with regards to an individual that followed me this past week, and that was Mr. Dan Crothers, the man, the myth, the legend, one of the co-founders of VEVE. Now, I would never discuss something like this, but the reason I am is because I'm not sure if I'm overthinking this or if this is just, coincidental, but he happened to follow me after I retweeted something specific. And it was talking about how I realized that the word Halo in Dan's inventory during his VEVEverse presentation was not the word Halo. And by the way, that's a word getting cut off, so it's not the full word, but it actually says Holo. And I retweeted a post. I can't remember who it was. I'll toss it on screen now. Shout out to you. But he said, "Why does David you keep mentioning holograms? Is VEVE trying to build a VEVEverse holodeck?" So I retweeted that and I said, so when I originally made my VEVEverse vid, I thought a lot of the stuff in Dan's inventory said Halo. I'm now realizing it says Holo, which could be short for hologram or holographic. There were many like this, complete speculation, but definitely intriguing. And right after I tweeted that, I'm talking minutes after, Dan actually followed me on Twitter. So again, it could be completely coincidental, but I'm not sure if that was him looking at that tweet and being like, okay, this guy's onto something, like, let's shoot him a little follow and see what else he says. But considering how many in Dan's inventory actually had that word, it could be short form for hologram or holographic. That's what I'm thinking. Again, it's speculation, but yeah. A few little updates there. I'll stop rambling now and let's get on with the episode. All right, so first and foremost, for those who are completely unaware of who Banksy is one of the world's most famous artists and arguably the most famous street artist, specifically graffiti. Now, Banksy's identity to this day is still unknown. There are a couple individuals who are speculated to be Banksy, but at the end of the day, no one really knows. Now, he's an individual who is known for not wanting to publicly sell his art. In fact, there's that incident where one of his paintings was put up for auction by Sotheby's, and it shredded live in front of the audience moments after the painting sold for $1.1 million. Now, what's even crazier about this, and I just mentioned how he doesn't like his art being sold, this was actually a frame that Banksy designed and created himself, and he created a video showing the behind the scenes of him making it, and the frame was made years in advance. He talks about how he made the frame in case the piece was ever put up for auction. It shows him putting the frame together and so on and so forth. But funny story, what ended up happening is after the painting shredded, Sotheby's ended up keeping the painting. And they had it on display all sectioned off in a back room. At least that's what it looked like in the photo. And several years later, they actually put it back up for auction with the painting half shredded. and they had predicted that the painting was going to sell for 8.3 million. It ended up selling for 24 million, and this was only, a few years after it had shredded. So it went from 1.1 to 24 million because of the painting shredding. It almost seems like the more and more Banksy tries to stop this stuff from happening, the more and more his pieces and artwork is actually desired. Now, he is a UK-based artist, so his art has popped up all over Europe, but then also places in like Ukraine as of recently, to places all the way over, in North America. You got the States, Canada. I'm close to Toronto. He actually has, I think he did 8 pieces in Toronto at one point, and now there's only 2 left. And the city put, plexiglass over it to protect it, and yeah. But Banksy uses stencils to create his work. So what he does is he creates the stencils beforehand, and then he'll walk up to the wall or building of choice, wherever he wants to put it, and, throws a stencil on the wall, paints it, throws another one on, paints another layer, throws another stencil on, paints another layer, and then adds the details with like a little marker at the end. So that's kind of how he does his art. His art is highly, highly sought after worldwide, drawing in large crowds when his pieces pop up. You have people driving from hours away to come and see them, and going even as far as the cities themselves, cutting out the walls and tossing them into museums to protect and preserve the pieces. Now, a very, very recent situation has unfolded with Banksy. So what ended up happening was Guess had a display up at one of their stores with Banksy art, and this was all made possible, I guess, with a relationship or partnership they had with a company known as Brandalism. And ultimately, Banksy never gave permission to either company to use his art. So he ended up coming out, making a post telling people to go and shoplift at Guess, and it unfolded into this whole ordeal. They ended up having to close the store down shortly after. Now, this is not the first time that something like this has happened. Banksy has fought numerous times and has actually lost numerous times in court battles over trademarks and copyrights for his art. Now, the reason I want to talk about this situation is because this happened at the exact same time that VEVE announced Banksy NFTs on the platform. So my first thought when I saw this was, oh my God, we're going to have Banksy on the app. It's going to be huge. But then I started to think, wait a second, Banksy is known for not wanting to sell his art. So how did they make this happen? And so there was more discussion starting to happen over on Twitter about who the license was actually signed with. Now, I first talked about this in episode 24, but an individual by the name NoWayFRX ended up tweeting out that the license was not with Banksy, it was with Metacom and Brandalism. Now, since then, I have noticed that they did include Metacom and things like that in the reveal video. The frames were just moving too fast where I didn't even realize it the first time. So I started to look into these companies a little bit more, and while I was doing this, an individual named O Millionaire, another member of the community that's very active on Twitter, he ended up posting a Twitter space where members of the community were actually discussing this topic with an already current licensor and artist on VEVE. So Mr. Ron English himself, he has several pieces on the VEVE app, but he opted into a Twitter space with the VEVE community, and he gave his opinion on the Banksy situation. Check it out.
If anybody of you is involved in the real world at any level, you can't fucking do that, then like cry foul later, okay? And the ugly truth about Banksy is whenever Banksy needs some money, he just goes, and I know these people, dude, he just goes to some super rich French businessman guy and goes, how would you like a piece for your villa? That'll be 500,000 euros. Boom, he goes in there, he slaps some shit up for a day, he gets paid. Homeboy makes all the money he wants. And super hot take, everyone's going to hate me. All he ever did was rip off Molecular Rat in the 1968 situation of student protest posters from the Summer of Revolution in France. So, like, you know what, man? Like, if it looks like a Banksy and people want to pay $20 for it, well, you know what? People can buy Mona Lisas all day long too for $20, right? Banksy has made himself kitsch. Thematically, his work is very, very safe. No one's ever threatened by a Banksy piece. That's why it's beloved by like rich businessmen, because it's like, oh, it's like I'm edgy, but not really, because it just, you know, and Banksy has good marketing, really good marketing. And I got involved in a venture a few years back with some very wealthy European investors who were going to do a legit manufacturing deal worldwide with Banksy, and he just jerked them off forever, which is kind of fun, but the process got really irritating over the course of a year. So like, if Banksy is going to get a little butthurt because Metacom is using the Japanese veil to produce Banksy-like pieces on a mass scale, which they own the copyrights to. Okay, and VEVE does it. Well, there you go. Right. So they're not representing Banksy. They're being pretty transparent about saying what it is. The consumer can vote with their feet. If you don't want to buy, quote, a bootleg Banksy, just don't buy it.
Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it.
So Mr. Ron English himself, he is a popular artist, and obviously being an artist in that space, I think it's safe to say that this man knows more about this than anybody else making videos in the community or watching these videos. So I think taking what he has to say into consideration is very important here. So he goes on to talk about how Metacom is using the Japanese veil to be able to produce Banksy pieces on a mass scale, and they have the copyright in order to do so. So I think that's very, very important, and we'll come back to that in a moment. So we've mentioned two companies throughout the video so far, and that's going to be Metacom and Brandalism. So I wanted to break down exactly who they are and what they do to give you guys a better understanding of what to expect in the future. So on the left-hand side, first we'll talk about Metacom. Metacom is a Japanese toy manufacturer. They were founded in 1996. They specialize in collectible figurines and vinyl toys, and their most well-known product is something called a Bear Brick. So I'm sure you guys have seen this around. I've seen a lot of celebrities with these. They've also collaborated with Cause, who's another big artist, and a lot of his pieces have also been seen with celebrities. But in addition to big artists like him, they also have collaborations with large IP like Disney. The company's developed a cult-like following. Many high-profile celebrities display their pieces in their homes. Celebrities like Justin Bieber, Ben Baller, and even Dr. Phil. And the company's played a major role in bridging the gaps between art, fashion, and culture. So being able to provide merchandise for all three of those areas. Now over on the right-hand side, we got Brandalism. So Brandalism is an anti-advertising movement. In their words, we are an international collective of artists and activists that confront the power of big business and their public relations advertising. So they create parodies or spoofs to replace ads in public areas. And of course, in this case, Banksy's graffiti is all done in public areas, public buildings, walls, things of the sort. So that would all fall under what Brandalism focuses on. So there were two questions that I wanted to answer while making this video. So the first question I think is something that we can answer, but the second question is something we have to kind of wait to see how it unfolds. So the first one is, who is the license signed with? And I think it is fair to say that it's with Metacom and Brandalism. There is no Banksy license with VEVE. The license is with these two companies, one of which holds the copyright to some of Banksy's work. The second question, will this have a positive or negative impact on VEVE's brand image? I don't really think you can answer this until it unfolds. But I can give you guys my opinion on what I think could happen. So I'll be honest with you guys. At first, I was like, oh, this could be detrimental for VEVE. If Banksy calls out VEVE in a similar way that he just did with Guess, this would not look good on, the brand. But the more and more I think about it, this is my thought process. If you look at a brand like Guess, Guess is known globally. But if you look at a brand like VEVE, barely anybody knows about them. So, and I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who doesn't know about VEVE. If I hear about another instance where Banksy's calling out another company, right? I'm not looking at that and going, who's Banksy? I'm looking at that and going, who's VEVE? So I'm going online and doing some research on VEVE, right? And the next thing you know, oh, I'm a Disney fan, Marvel fan. They got Marvel IP. I'm a VEVE fan, right? Little waterfall effect there. But anyways, that's besides the point. My point is this. If Banksy were to call out VEVE in a similar way to what he just did with Guess, oh, go and undownload the app or whatever the case may be, that would only be drawing more eyes to VEVE. And although it's not necessarily positive attention, I think long term for a brand that not many people know about, just putting more eyes on the brand and having some of them stick, long term it would just help VEVE out more. Right? Like if Banksy calls out Guess, everybody knows who Guess is. So I look at that and I go, oh, well, what did Guess do? If Banksy calls out VEVE and you don't know about VEVE, what did VEVE do is the second question you ask. Who is VEVE is the first question. So I think it's very, very different for a company that is already known and has that recognition worldwide versus a company that nobody knows about and is emerging in a brand new space. But the moral of the story is this. They do not have a license with Banksy himself. Banksy does not agree with things like this. Banksy would prefer his art not to be sold publicly, not to be produced on a mass scale, But because of companies like Metacom who hold the copyrights they do, Banksy cannot do anything about it. So I gave my opinion, but at the end of the day, the reason why I say we can't really, give an answer as to whether or not this will have a positive or negative effect on VEVE's image is because we have to wait for something like this to unfold. Let me know what you guys are thinking in the comment section down below. Are you guys thinking along the same lines as me, or do you guys think this will have a negative impact on the brand? Do you guys think the Banksy NFTs shouldn't be on VEVE at all? Or are you guys happy with the team's decision to bring these licenses on board? So that's going to conclude today's episode. I thought it was only appropriate to have the raw and English background for today's video. But if you guys enjoyed it, make sure to drop a like on the video. Subscribe if you haven't already. Comment down below what you guys want to see in future episodes. And as for our next one, I'll catch you on Thursday.